Hey guys, welcome back to Canadian Boxing Hub. Obviously been a long time since I've been able to get a video out. Been chatting to my friend Bob with Canada's Boxing Channel, and he's kind of prompted me to get my rear in gear here and put something out. And I've been consumed the last couple days, as I'm sure everyone has, with the aftermath of the Usyk Dubois fight. Of course, just the greatness of Alexander Usyk. As I was telling Bob, absolutely for me, solidly in my top 5 heavyweights of all time. Now, that's just my opinion. That's due to ridicule, and, everyone's going to have their differences of opinions on that. But for me, in no particular order, I've got Muhammad Ali, I've now got Alexander Usyk, I've got Joe Louis, Lennox Lewis, and Rocky Marciano. Rocky Marciano and Jack Dempsey, for me, I'm always going back and forth thinking of which of them deserves to make the cut, as kind of a fighter from a bygone era who, of course, you put him in with a Lennox Lewis, or you put him in with a Alexander Usyk or Muhammad Ali, and I don't give Rocky Marciano or Jack Dempsey much of a chance, but for the era they were in, they were just absolute legends, absolute greats, so they deserve to be there because you can only be as good as your time permits. But for me, that's my top 5, and, that's the one aspect of this aftermath of this fight. But the more fascinating, confusing, bizarre side of the aftermath is hearing more and more out of the Dubois camp. Now, I know on fight night there was a mention at some point, maybe they mentioned it a couple times. I actually don't listen to the DAZN commentary much when I'm listening to the fights. Sometimes I'll put on the radio. Sometimes I just turn off altogether. It's too bad. I wish you could just hear fight noise. I'd love to listen because I think there's something to be said about viewing and observing a fight, the thud of the punches, the sharpness, the snaps, some of the breathing, sometimes you can even pick up on some trash talking and some of the directions coming out of the corner. But I don't want to hear commentators giving me their thoughts on this, that, or the other and kind of muddying your opinion of your viewing. So a lot of times I turn that down. But in between fights, they mentioned Daniel Dubois not yet to the stadium. That's bizarre. You got to be careful. London traffic, blah, blah, blah. Now, I remember before the Joshua fight, there was some footage that came out after the fight of pre-fight himself being at his home gym at Stan Dubois' kind of compound there. And there was some folks over, maybe like 5 to 10 people, not much, but they were sitting in this gym listening to bizarre music, all just kind of sitting around looking so strange and awkward. Like, the family is just super bizarre to me, and that's always been the case. And Stan Dubois is a basket case, and clearly Carolyn Dubois has done well to herself and her own sanity to get away from him in his curious ways. But now for this fight, I don't know if they decided as a family, hey, that was a great routine, let's do this again. But seems like Stan this time, reports are coming out, invited some 70-odd people over to the house. They got music bumping. I don't know if anyone's drinking. Every video I ever see of these people hanging out, it's just people awkwardly standing around and kind of filming. It's bizarre. And but anyways, that's a different point. So he's got 70-odd people. He apparently had to relieve himself from the environment at some point, Daniel, saying to his dad, I don't know these people, I don't know what we're doing here, kind of thing. Now, this isn't to say that if Daniel wasn't distracted with all this craziness and he was to the stadium early, got to do a normal fight routine, didn't generally have the offsetting balance of a crazy environment, that he would have beaten Usyk. I think Usyk is obviously a generational great, and probably beats Daniel Dubois 99 out of 100 times, if not 100 out of 100. But all that instability just goes to show, like, what types of things are being prioritized in camp. No wonder Daniel Dubois is just such a strange young man. And now I'm watching, and I think everyone always goes, oh, well, if Don Charles had more control of this camp, or if Don Charles, that somehow he's separate from all of this and this is happening independently from him. I'm currently 4.5 minutes into an interview he's done with Seconds Out and Radio Raheem, where Radio Raheem seemed to have asked him one question about calls to him to be, sacked by Dubois and relieved as head trainer. And he's 4.5 minutes in of a rambling answer about heaven and hell and people who are the devil. And, you know, I think there's a wider discussion of just all of these people who are around Daniel Dubois who are absolutely, doing him no service. I think a little bit like Johnny Fisher, right? Uh, After the fight with Dave Allen in Riyadh in December, the first fight, there was clearly some unhelpful behavior coming from the family and the team around him, his manager, uh, Adam Morale, his father, Big John. And you always wonder, how does that affect the fighter, the one who actually has to do it when people around him are being dramatic and getting into fights and being unrealistic and repainting history. And I see the same thing with Don Charles. Daniel Dubois' father is obviously a crazy influence. Um, you kind of feel for Daniel. He doesn't have a chance. And to be fair to the Dave Allens who 2 days ago were saying, does he really want this? Does he want to fight? Does he? Does he know anything about himself, or is he just the product of Stan Dubois? Um, it's interesting to see, and you hope the best for him. Obviously, some fighters have come up in bizarre upbringings, like, Mike Tyson was trained to be a gladiator by Cus D'Amato, and by, 14 years old was quoting Alexander the Great and had no life outside of fighting. So, bizarre environments can sometimes breed greatness. Unorthodox measures often work. But for Daniel Dubois, it all seems to have gone wrong here. How far will he fall? What kind of fight will he come back in? Is it going to be a change of trainer? Can he ever really separate himself from the craziness of his family via his father? Who is Daniel Dubois? Does he want to fight? So what's next for him? I think obviously out of the fight, we all want to see Alexander Usyk win in with one of only two people, Joseph Parker or Agit Kabayel. Preferably for me in that order. I'd like to see him do one, then the other, and then maybe Moses Atauma has prepared by then. It can be the changing of the guard fight, and that'll be it for Usyk. For Daniel Dubois, I really don't know where he goes next, and it all for me is going to lie in what we hear in the next few months. Is he back out in Brazil with his father for a month, hanging out and posting strange videos? Do we hear about a trainer change? Even is he looking at maybe a promotional change? I mean, all due credit to Frank Warren for getting him now all of these title opportunities and the undisputed fight. And that being said, has he necessarily been kind to Daniel in other than a monetary sense? All of these setbacks Daniel's now had, the way he's been guided, I don't know if he's been done any favors in the long run for his real true well-being. So let me know what you guys think. What kind of changes do you expect to come? Is nothing going to change? Is this just the career arc of Daniel Dubois and it'll be more bizarre events in the future with a couple of wins and then losses when facing adversity? Let me know what you think. Comment, like, subscribe. It does go a long way. And appreciate you guys for coming back and listening. Talk to you next time.